Oh boy. Hi everybody, I'm Skip Alzheimer and welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show where we watch old 16mm films, and that was some old home movies of a military training school. I didn't quite catch which one it was, but it's the Culver family. That's all we really know. And towards the end, I don't know if you saw the weird kind of texture that was beginning of this is vinegar syndrome and kind of a crystallization of some of the emulsion, which does not bode well for the film. It means that it's on its last leg. So we got a good scan of it prior to it going away. So let's see, what do we got next? We got so many things to watch. Let's watch some NASA. I've been sneaking some more NASA into our daily diet at lunch. Here's Shaping Tomorrow.
This is the NASA Johnson Space Center, home of America's astronauts and control center for the nation's manned space missions. It is also the center for a team of highly qualified aerospace engineers who are shaping tomorrow. But before we have a closer look, let's see if we can answer a few questions like,
what is an engineer?
What does an engineer do? At what point does an engineer start to specialize?
Would the field of engineering decrease as more people study or go into the field?
What type of background and knowledge must an aerospace engineer have to obtain a good job with a place like NASA or McDonnell Douglas?
What are the newer fields of engineering?
And what does a biomedical engineer do at NASA?
people know what firemen and policemen and doctors do. But what about engineers? Let's talk to some engineers from NASA's Johnson Space Center to see if we can find out how they became engineers and what they think is important about their jobs.
This is the ATM science room. During Skylab, we monitored the Apollo telescope mount from this room. This console monitored the white light coronagraph, which was an instrument to look at the sun in the visible spectrum. The coronagraph worked in such a manner that there was a disk which blocked out the full face of the sun, and we were really interested in what was called the corona. This was a big mass of material, and we were able to capture with the white light coronagraph. During Skylab, we had to work with scientists across the United States and help them design scientific instruments which would study the sun. We designed those instruments from an operational standpoint. The scientists designed it from a scientific standpoint, knowing what their scientific objectives were. We got involved and helped them to design the instruments in such a fashion that they would be controllable from the ground. We could look at the right type of data from the spacecraft and sit at the consoles and determine how the instrument is operating, where to point the instrument, what to do with it, correct for any malfunctions that occurred during the flight. I got interested in engineering back during my high school days when I was influenced by my teachers, my parents. My father was an automotive mechanic, and ever since I can remember, I've been interested in mechanical gadgets, repairing them, taking them apart. And I thought at that time I wanted to be an automotive engineer. However, during my senior year in high school, I had a research project assigned to me in a chemistry class, which involved determining or finding out how a gadget worked called a cyclotron. During the process of that research, I found out that this instrument was something used in the field of physics, some magic field of physics that split small particles, atoms, into smaller parts. So I then became interested in this field of physics and decided to go to college and major in the subject of physics. In 1963, I started working at the Johnson Space Center with a group responsible for designing the lunar module, the spacecraft which landed on the moon, and later was assigned to a group to study the lunar surface and to try and find suitable landing sites for this lunar module. In '65, I was graduated, and at that time, or during that time, is when I sat at this console and monitored the Skylab mission.
Coming from a poor family, my dad certainly couldn't afford to send me to school, and the only way that I could go was if some way I was managed to get the money either through a scholarship or through the military, which is one of the areas that was certainly open to me. And I went ahead through school, and I finally got involved in the classes such as math and science and physics, and these were courses that I really enjoyed. And the thing that distinguished the students that were in the math and the physics area, these type of scientific type courses, was that, hey, if you're taking these kind of courses, you're able to say that you're different from the average type student which taking the related math courses or the easy way out through school. And this was a challenge to me to be able to say that I was taking the hard courses and was still able to get the grades. And this was important to me as far as a goal in life. I always wanted to be able to do good in school. And once I got through my junior year in high school, I had taken most of the courses that would make me able to go to college. And I had always been interested in electricity, and it kind of fascinated me, and playing with radios when I was smaller had helped me to have respect for electricity and engineering as a whole. And so I stayed with engineering all the way through school. And finally, when I graduated in '74, I came to work here at NASA, and I've been here for now 2.5 years working with the electrical distribution system of the shuttle itself, and we're in charge of making sure that the right amount of power gets to the right places. Now, Shirley Chevalier works in the other section, which is the equipment section. They're in charge of the components themselves, the testing of the components.
Just to go through the chronology of what it takes to be an engineer here. Take one of my components, maybe the remote power controller. We start out with a vendor coming in with a conception. They think they've got a design that's going to do all the great things for the space program, so they come in and tell us about their design. Well, we have to look over the design, so you have to have some engineering background, and you have to keep up with state of the art, because when people are coming in with something new, it's really new. You have to know the state of the art at that time. So they come in with this idea. We have to look over their design and say, yep, I think it will do what we want it to. And we go on contract to these people to maybe make us up some prototypes. And they bring those prototype models in. We take them out in our laboratory and run evaluation tests and see if they really perform as they're supposed to. Once they get all the bugs out, we go up to management and say, these people have a real good idea. It's going to save us money, and it's going to save us space and weight, which is, our primary concerns on the shuttle. Well, we have to attend design reviews to make sure they're doing all the things that we need to have done. We have environmental requirements that are different from what the average industrial person might require. And we have to know something about their manufacturing techniques, because we kind of have to foresee any problems that might show up later on. When we've launched something out in space, we can't have any baddies happening. So you have to have a pretty good background. You have to know something maybe about a little business. You have to know a little something about production, and you have to know something about engineering. So it takes a varied background to do work here.
Other NASA engineers are looking beyond the year 2000.
I'm an electrical engineer here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Right now we're located in Building 32 in a vacuum chamber. Now, this vacuum chamber here is probably the largest in the free world. It's an engineering test unit designed to simulate the conditions in outer space. It's approximately 120 feet high, 65 feet in diameter. And this door alone here weighs about 40 tons. But for the moment, I want to talk to you a little about how I got into engineering. I grew up in a small town in Central Texas, and my childhood experiences weren't very much different than what you have experienced. As a kid, I was a neighborhood bicycle mechanic, got involved in other activities involving fixing carburetors on automobiles and so forth. Well, my interest in engineering only flourished after I got into high school. I had a high school math teacher who more or less explained to me what engineering was all about and encouraged me to pursue that field. Right now, we're looking at systems which will collect energy from the sun, beam it back to the earth in the form of microwave energy, and convert it to electricity to be used by people like you. These systems are aimed at solving the problem we have in energy right now. It gets us away from using coal, oil, and natural gas, natural resources that are in short supply. In addition to collecting solar energy from space, in the future we're going to be looking at using space in other ways. Perhaps by the year 2000 to the year 2025, we'll have colonies of people living and producing in space. We'll have manufacturing production facilities in space. At this point in time, I probably won't be here or even involved, but you will. And these are going to be the kind of problems that are going to be left to people like you and your peers to solve.
Let's talk to a biomedical engineer and see what that job's like at NASA.
I was really interested in the space program, so that's what I started really working towards, was trying to get into NASA and working for NASA. I took all the prerequisites for all the science and engineering courses in high school. Once I got into high school, I took just mostly science courses, and my major was in biophysics. That really is also made up of a lot of biochemistry. I have a minor in chemistry, and a lot of physics courses, and a lot of mathematics courses. Started getting interested into the engineering aspects of it when I started to look at NASA more seriously, and when I started looking for a job with NASA. I am currently taking courses at the University of Houston as a graduate student in electronics, and I think my field has started to be more into the electronics background now. Some of the things that I've been working here at NASA have been 3 cardiovascular experiments that had mainly to do with fluid shifts in the cardiovascular systems and the way that the blood circulated within your body in 0G. Now, here before you see the lower body negative pressure device. A device just like this one was flown in Skylab. What this device did is that the person gets in it and the legs first, and it seals at your waist. Then we reduce the pressure within the module. In zero gravity, since you have no gravity pulling down, all the fluids in your body really collect around your thorax and your head. Well, this puts a great strain on your cardiovascular system. We'd like to be seeing what type of stresses the astronauts are exposed to. We're taking EKG, blood pressure, and then we've got these capacitance bands that were put around the legs, and these would measure the difference of cardiovascular effects both in zero gravity and here on the ground. Before an experiment is actually flown, it goes through a series of tests. Some of the tests that we do is to fly it in the 0G aircraft. This aircraft performs parabolic flight, and there's a state in the parabola where you are in zero gravity. Now in there we test similar equipment to this and other experiments. In January of 1975, we had a space lab simulation in which cardiovascular experiments and other types of experiments like vestibular experiments, rat experiments, plant experiments, where the hardware was tested out. Not only did we test out procedures, we tested out the crew procedures, the hardware itself and the timelines and the power that it took for the experiments.
This engineer is working to see that when payloads are constructed for the shuttle, they will fit and work well with the shuttle systems.
One of our prime responsibilities in the program office is to make sure that as the development of the space shuttle is completed, to try to integrate various payloads into the space shuttle. The space shuttle here shows a payload bay, and the payloads are those pieces of hardware that have been developed out in the scientific community. An example of some of the payloads that will be flying on the space shuttle are the Space Lab, which is a carrier that is designed by the European countries. And once the Space Lab is designed, it will be flown on the space shuttle. I think that not only should one be good in the field of math, physics, or chemistry, but he should also be good in English, you know. He should be good in writing, because it is very important that one be able to communicate with people the ideas that he has been able to come up with. And if he's not able to express or get his thoughts over to the person that he's trying to sell the idea, the math and the physics, in my opinion, really doesn't help him. So I think that if the person is good at changing the oil on his father's car, if he's good in the field of mathematics, if he's good with just doing things with his hands, if he wants to be a builder, I think that this is an interest that was generated from within. And I think that that's the most important thing. I think the most important thing is to be in an atmosphere whereby one can be exposed to the field. And once he's been exposed, I think it has to be left up to the student. It has to be generated from within as to the kind of person that he wants to become.
Building, solving problems, making choices. Only you know if you want to be an engineer. But if you make that choice, the doors are open to go as far as your imagination will take you. In just 60 years, mankind progressed from that first short flight at Kitty Hawk to that giant leap to the moon. And beyond that now, to the routine access to space with the space shuttle. This achievement was attained by a team of specialists who, perhaps like you, wanted to play their part in shaping tomorrow.
Call that the Earthworm logo. And as I've said in the past, the other logo which they went back to, which was a circular one, they called the meatball, and I think that they should have called that the Earthworm logo the spaghetti logo, but that's just me. Anyways, so that's a film about STEM. Teaching science and technology and math before STEM. It was trying to reach out to the non-white man engineers and those considering that field, and trying to get them others interested in engineering. So it's really kind of great, fascinating. So I got a film set up on the scanner, and it is another film from Craig Baldwin, and I'm not sure what it is. I know that it's faded red. That's all we got. There was kind of a title taped to it called Dust and Sun, but I have no idea. So hopefully it won't get crazy, or maybe hopefully it will get crazy. So here it is, Dust and Sun.
Skills. People with hands deft and sure that fashion and shape articles of beauty, both for barter and exchange, or for sale as a means of livelihood in a simple and uncomplicated way of life. People with gay and colorful dress along the country road, or on the city walks. And do you notice the timid smiles lighting shy, friendly faces? For example, here is Pedro Lopez. Old Pedro, we affectionately called him. Perhaps we will never see this charming little man again, but here are two constant reminders of an unforgettable personality. A warm smile and the old man's Sunday shoes, symbols of vital elements in his daily existence. Sun and dust. Many roads lead to the fabulous land of sun and dust, but three great arteries carry the majority of American visitors into the country. Our venture begins as we cross the Rio Grande River at Laredo. A final inspection reveals all the essentials, including our tourist card, the only document needed for a safe and pleasant journey. Our spirits high, a rolling road invites us toward a distant horizon and our immediate destination, Monterey. Have you ever looked carefully at the national flag of Mexico? In the center is a symbol of the nopal cactus, for cactus occupies an important place in the history and economy of the country. We don't travel far until sights of cactus appear, some straight and rigid, silent sentinels of the desert. Some grotesque and bizarre, bristling like porcupines, with sharp, defiant quills. Others colorful, with brilliant flowers, odd shapes and all sizes, for there are 500 or more species identified with Mexico. Cactus everywhere, planned and planted by the hand of a kindly and benevolent creator who foresaw that human life could not long exist on these sandy, sun-parched stretches without just such a wonder plant. Wonderful because cactus is capable of supplying man's daily necessities, food, clothing, water, and other useful items. Every cactus has some practical purpose. For example, look at that sturdy fellow, serving nicely as storage. No need for corn cribs here. Most prominent among the cactus is maguey, a source of rope. It is often processed right along the busy highway. The giant green leaves of this cactus are first cut and split to a workable size. The blades are then beaten to loosen the pulp. The bruised leaf is combed, often with a crude nail-studded board, to remove the moist, clinging pulp, leaving tough, resilient strands to be flung on lines to dry in the hot Mexican sun. Thoroughly dried, the stringy material is then skillfully spun into serviceable strands. Later to be twisted into many thicknesses, making cord, rope, and even thread for hand sewing, much of which is done by older men as they pass the time of day on sunny, pleasant streets. Toil-worn fingers fashioning useful household articles. The thin skin of the maguey is also used to manufacture a kind of parchment paper. Some cactus is not so beneficial, for the earliest history of cactus is said to be associated with one of man's oldest vices, intoxicating liquors and beverages. One intoxicating liquor, called tequila, is made from the living hearts of the tequila cactus. Cactus, harvested from the fields, is brought into processing plants. The great cores are chopped into smaller blocks and roasted in huge ovens. The juice is later extracted to make a powerful drink. Vinegar and even molasses is made from these hardy desert plants. Before we realize it, Monterey breaks into view. This great commercial center is the industrial heart of Mexico. Much of the colonial aspect of the city has disappeared with the changing times, but the city blends charming Mexican characteristics with comfortable American improvements. The surrounding country invites exploration. For example, there is Horsetail Falls, high in nearby mountains. Automobiles must be discarded in favor of the Horsetail Falls Express. All aboard! Now, if the express will just wait long enough for passengers to get aboard, we'll be on our way. A little rough, but it beats walking. It won't be long until the falls, heard long before they are seen, will be in view. On valley floors, it's the plowing season. Dust filters upward from busy plows, delicately veiling the mountainside with a gossamer haze. West of Monterey is Huasteca Canyon, famous for its rock-ribbed gorges and fantastic rock formations, shearing sharply up, dwarfing all else in sight. To the southwest, a high road clings to the stony ridge of the Sierra Madres, twisting, curving, descending to the city of orchids, to the seacoast town of Papantla, hot, low, tropical. Do you know that species of orchids? They are by far the most exotic blossoms of the humid jungle land. Orchids are often called parasites. This is not so. Actually, they are true air plants. That is, they thrive best by simply clinging to a single stem or to the limb of a neighboring tree. And do you know that one variety is edible and used almost every day in your home? This commercial flower is found in only 2 places in the world, on the faraway island of Madagascar and here in the region around Papantla. The blossoms produce long aromatic beans called sticks, and when ripened sufficiently, are harvested and hauled into busy processing plants. The sticks are seasoned 3 days in drying kilns under evenly controlled temperatures. They are then transferred to straw mats outside to finish drying in the warm, brilliant sunshine. To prevent molding in the moist sea air, they must be taken in every night. To produce profitably, the orchids must be pollinated by hand, a careful, painstaking job. Each Indian tribe is noted for some particular craft, contributing to the economy of an agricultural people. The commercial orchid process belongs to the Totonacan Indians. The seasoned orchid sticks are finally brought into inspection sheds. Tiny, bitter stem ends are clipped and the imperfect beans discarded. The cured sticks are bundled, packaged, and exported to the United States to be made into America's most popular flavoring. If the cooks in your family use pure vanilla extract, chances are they are cooking with the orchids of Papantla. Besides the edible flower, an infinite variety of orchids abound throughout this warm, sun-drenched land. Unusual foliage, lifting lacy fingers upward, weave unfamiliar patterns against the faultless blue of summer skies. There are countless blossoming plants in Mexico, for this land has no dormant season. Here, the familiar vie with the unusual ones that flourish only in tropic climes. Gay and gaudy plants add splashes of color everywhere, for the Mexican cultivates and cherishes the beauty that is found on every hand in his native land. The mountain village of 14 is noted for giant gardenias. The Ruiz Galindo Hotel is world famous for its gardenia pool. Every morning, large hampers of sweet-scented gardenias are gathered from local gardens and poured into the shimmering waters of the pool. Quite a bit different than the old swimming hole back home, isn't it? But the splash is the same. Say, gardenias are not all that add to the beauty and the inviting waters of the gardenia pool. In the midst of this lush country lies the charming little city of Jalapa, called the Flower Garden of Mexico. Cranberries? No. Chances are that you drank a brew made from the cured and roasted beans this very morning. Coffee, strangely enough, is a member of the evergreen family. The plants do not bear well in the glare of the hot sun. Therefore, they are planted in the shade of other trees. Coffee thrives best in rich, sandy soil on highlands, where the yearly temperature remains between 60 and 90 degrees. The blooms, which cluster closely to the stem, are waxy white blossoms that fill the air with a sweet, heady fragrance. The plants are often in flower and fruit at the same time. The trees start bearing when they are 3 years old. Some of them will continue producing for 100 years. To ensure the best flavor, the fruit must be picked at just the right time. The processing plant is usually located right on the plantation. When the berries arrive, they are washed through many sluices to remove the leaves, twigs, and the like. The berries then go into great hullers, where they lose their bright cherry red coats. The fruit is further processed to separate the twin seeds from the plump, juicy berry. The freed coffee beans are channeled into fermenting vats to cure for a time, then brought out and spread on immense cement platforms where they remain many days in the dry air, constantly turned and raked. You might say they are untouched by human hands. Each bean receives sufficient air and sun to ensure a well-seasoned crop. The dried seeds are covered with a thin parchment-like outer coat, which must be removed before roasting. The harvested beans are now ready for shipment abroad. Mexican berries are sought for their delicate, aromatic flavor. The United States consumes more than 1/2 of all the coffee in the world, and every year our demand increases. The highest, most spectacular terrain in the country rises in the region around Jalapa and Puebla. Some of the world's tallest volcanoes thrust their snowy cones up into the clouds. The continent's most symmetrical volcano, Orizaba, is over 18,000 feet high. Orizaba is higher than our giant Mount Whitney in California. What do you do when you're out of gas and filling stations are out too? Start shopping. Stores carry it in barrels. A few impurities, maybe, but that old felt hat is a wonderful strainer. Everywhere, rugged peaks and rocky crags jut up into the sky, crests often draped in trailing clouds of mist. The road inches along steep inclines, then plunges sharply into broad valleys below. Twisting and turning in a series of cutbacks and hairpin curves, the highway stretches off into the distance as far as the eye can see. Puebla, situated in a broad glen, is one of the great Spanish-built cities of the Republic. Puebla has done much to foster and preserve her early arts and traditions. The first continental enclosed market is still in use, serving now as art studios. Plays are still presented in the oldest theater constructed in the New World. Lovely senoritas still occupy this balcony, the first ever granted permission to be built in the Americas. To people of a modern age, Puebla means the home of brilliant, finely Indians learned this art. Well, from time immemorial, they were highly skilled clay workers. The Spaniards, quick to see commercial possibilities, imported highly experienced European potters to teach the native artisans the secret of making glistening Talavera tile and mosaics. Doesn't this look like a simple, easy operation? Remember, however, this man has been plying his trade from childhood, as did his father and his father's father for many preceding generations. The artist, swift and sure, quickly fills in the rough outline of some chosen design. The colors may seem drab and dull as they come from the paint pots, but later the tiles come to life with vibrant color as they emerge from the intense heat of the kilns. The diggers. The grave may expose a perfectly preserved body. The strange phenomena is due, it is said, to the high, dry climate, and also perhaps to the peculiar mineral properties of the soil. Then, for the brave and hardy tourist, there is the gruesome gallery of the dead, a never-to-be-forgotten sight. Bodies stand strangely inanimate along a dark subterranean passage, as if patiently awaiting entrance to another world. The Mexican Union abounds in a great number of excellent spas and resorts. Each possesses individual charm and distinction. The mineral-laden mountains, agitated by deeply internal disturbances, have produced numerous hot springs, rich in certain mineral deposits that are both stimulating and healthful to man. The Indians themselves, for countless centuries before white man's arrival, knew and used these thermal springs to advantage. Perhaps San Jose de Perua is the best known of these resorts. They are famous for the radioactive waters and the rejuvenating properties of its saffron-colored mud packs. The ladies, eager to discover the secret of eternal youth, plaster themselves with the yellow clay. Another resort, Comanhia, near Guanajuato, supports no less than 42 boiling springs. The perfect spot for a roadside lunch, prepared without fuss on nature's outdoor cook stove. A 3-minute egg in 2 minutes' time. Careful there, mister, that's hot. Other springs heat the swimming pools. In fact, all the hot water used in this area is supplied by these very springs. Beyond Guanajuato, on top of one of the highest mountains, in the exact geographical center of Mexico, a modern stone shrine has been erected. From this prominence, the rolling fertile lands of 4 states can be seen, melting into the horizon far away. The massive symmetrical dome of the church is crowned with a heroic figure of El Cristo Rey, Christ the King. The bronze statue, with benevolent arms outstretched, rises 65 feet above the dome. Many Indians make pilgrimages to this shrine. Mexican Indians, in general, are intensely religious, the concepts of their faith often coloring every phase of their lives. Pilgrimages attract the faithful at various times of the year to many churches over the land. Some of these journeys, like the holy trek to San Juan de los Lagos, attract 6,000 or 7,000 persons at once. To pay travel expenses, the devout travelers make and sell odd pieces of handwork or carry produce which they hope to sell. Coinciding with the pilgrimages, enterprising merchants conduct annual fairs, resulting in a time of excitement that eases for a few days the cares of life in fiesta. Did you ever see a house made of mud? This one is a special variety of clay, abundant throughout the country. Formed into adobe, the bricks are used to construct buildings for the wealthy as well as countless homes for the poor. Adobe is frequently employed as a material for stores and public buildings too. The earth is dug up and mixed with straw, the straw acting as a binder. Sufficient water is added to make a stiff, doughy mass. When the mixture is of the proper consistency, it is shoveled into wood molds for shaping. The bricks left to dry and bake in the hot Mexican sun will be stacked later on so that air can circulate freely around them. It is customary to coat adobe buildings with a protective covering of plaster. With the plaster coating, adobe is protected from the rains and the weather and will last for years. Guadalajara is the second largest city in the country and continues to expand as an important commercial center. This native carrier is on his way to market with a product that attracts thousands of tourists every year. The Indians use great quantities of the plain, unadorned vessels for cooking, and these can withstand high temperatures, but are otherwise fragile and easily broken. However, they are quite as useful and practical as the metal pots and pans used in modern kitchens. The Guadalajara region is especially noted for the decorative types of pottery. Beautifully shaped urns and vases are shipped each year in great numbers to the United States. To the Tonalá Indians belong the mastery of producing and painting these fine pieces. Guadalajara pottery is finer than most Mexican ware. Nearly every Indian pueblo supports its own pottery. The most suitable clay is slightly sweet. The women test it by tasting the soil. When the proper clay has been chosen, the job of drying is taken care of nicely by the Mexican sun. Together with bits of broken pottery, the dried clay is then ground into a powder. Later, water will be added to form the moist clay to the potter's needs. Size, shape, and beauty, determined entirely by the potter and his wheel. Spinning, as we watched, it seemed both a product of beauty and a lesson for life. A homely wheel spinning, turning, a lump of clay, shapeless, broken. Two skilled hands, both sure and certain. The wheel spins swiftly, the clay lays pliant. The hands work deftly, forming and fashioning to a design, a vessel of beauty, or useful, pre-shaped in the potter's mind. How like our lives, encased in clay, a dwelling of beauty eternal, when shaped the potter's way. Pottery, the symbol of man's handwork in Mexican village and city. El Salto Falls, a symbol of the Creator's handiwork on the Mexican countryside. El Salto, but one of many cataracts hidden from the sight of the casual traveler, whose waters gather in streams at great heights, joining rivers, racing through hollow canyons, pouring over rocky ledges on a hurried rush downward to the sea. Swift, graceful, green, and magical too. For where sweet water is scarce, the thirsty soil seems nourished by the very sweat of our native sons. But where life-giving waters flow, barren land is transformed as if by magic into fields and meadows, fair, green, and fruitful. Little known El Salto is off the beaten path, not too distant from Monterey. Can you imagine a more delightful place to reflect on the sights and experiences of the last few weeks, hair-raising adventures of our early storybook friends? El Salto, a pleasant stopping place to rest before the final drive home. Home to vivid memories, friendly faces, pleasant reminders of a never-to-be-forgotten visit to that wonderful land, sun and dust.
But of course, the color is just red. Yeah, so Ektachrome, man. A cheaper film stock made by Kodak, and one that the color dyes begin to fade to a amber or pink or purple color because the cyan and the greens and the blues all disappear. Kodachrome, of course, doesn't have that problem. It has its own color fading problems depending on what year it was made, but not nearly as severe as what we just saw. But that, yeah, so that was like a travelogue. That guy, potentially, I don't know anything about this, and I might have to look it up, or maybe one of you guys can look it up in the comments. Like rich people would sometimes travel around and shoot home movies and then package them together. And there was a whole thing. Burton Holmes was someone who did this, where they would tour around and they would show the films that they had shot, and then they would live lecture. So they were itinerant film presenters presenting the films that they shot while they traveled. And so there's a lot of fascinating stuff that was captured in the early 20th century. Of course, it's all through the filter of the very wealthy. And so this is actually a very sympathetic view of Mexico, but I have seen others which were not so great. So there you go. While we're thinking about it, wow, that ran a long time, but I can't leave you with just that. Man, I had no idea it was going to run that long, so I apologize. But let's watch German Film Town. How about that? Enjoy. Let me make sure I have the right one.
In the midst of fertile farmlands in Bavaria, southern Germany, lies the old town of Nördlingen. It is a town of tradition. Hourly from dark till dawn, the Nachtwächter, the night watchman in the steeple of St. George's Church, sings out his password. And when it is answered from the town hall down below, it means that all is well. The view the watchman has today differs little from that of his predecessors 300 or 400 years ago. The town huddled around Old Daniel, as the Nördlingers call their main church, and enclosed by the same medieval defense walls. Even the houses have changed little. Although some date back to the 30 Years' War in the 17th century, or even longer, people still live in them. The fortified walls and the towers are almost 600 years old. They served a useful purpose in the days when Nördlingen was important as Freistadt, a free imperial city. Today it is just a quiet country town. In Tanner Street, where that trade once prospered, there is only one tannery left in operation, and that may close soon for lack of demand. Today, Nördlingen is more important as a market town. Once a month, the farmers from the surrounding country bring in the cattle they wish to sell. The animals are tied to bars set up on a wide street, and the traders walk around and make their appraisals and offers. When a sale is completed, all concerned combine efforts to get the animal onto the buyer's truck. The monthly hog sale is held in the market square. Buyers check pigs for liveliness as a sign of health. They will buy them by the litter or in small lots and make their offers accordingly. There are still old-timers in their traditional garb to be seen. They like to watch the bargaining, and the longer it takes, the better. They say a true Bavarian farmer doesn't budge, and before taking a penny less, he would rather carry his pigs back home. The country around Nördlingen is a wide, shallow basin, with well-tended fields, rimmed by gentle hills, and dotted with small villages, where the farmers live. This is the village of Holheim. It has a population of 300. The typical farm dwelling is built around a yard with a small duck pond. In the center is the manure pile. Barns are attached to the living area. This is Farmer Eberhardt. His big watchdog, Rex, has been guarding the farm all night. During the day, he stays locked in his kennel because he likes to roam around. Life on the farm runs on a strict schedule. Even the ducks seem to know when their feeding time is at hand. After Farmer Eberhardt has opened the gate, he will look after his cattle. In the meantime, his wife feeds the ducks and the chickens and gets the 2 children ready for school. The village of Hoheim is much too small to have a school of its own, so Rainer Eberhardt and his friend Helmut must go to another, larger village, 3 miles away, where there is a rural school. Another boy, Walter, joins them on the way. Often, after a heavy rain, they are slowed down by muddy roads, but they still prefer bicycles to walking. Of course, in winter, they must hike. There are 2 classrooms in this schoolhouse, one for pupils 6 to 10 years of age, the other, where Rainer and his friends go, for those 11 to 14. Their teacher, Herr Zimmermann, places great value upon the development of memory. Wohlgelernt is nie vergessen. Well memorized is never forgotten, he says. And if his pupils learn to recite long poems, they will be able to keep other subjects, such as history dates, in their heads as well. Herr Zimmermann doesn't even mind a little quiet prompting, as long as they all do their best. While the children plow through their poems, their parents plow through the fields. Farmer Eberhardt and his wife prepare the ground for seed potatoes. Helmut's parents are planting a field to wheat. In Germany, the farm woman must help her husband in the field more than ever because hired hands are hard to find. Horses and cattle are still commonly used to pull farm implements, and tractors are still rare because many small farmers can't afford them. This farmer works alone, seeding his potatoes. It is a slow process. One by one, they must be tossed and then pressed into the ground. The Eberhardts have more acreage and have hired some women to speed the work. Even the children join them after school, and they like it. They can't learn it early enough. They'll have to do their homework after supper. Other children have to work much harder. Spreading manure with a heavy fork for a couple of hours is a hard task for this boy, but his father works at something else, and this is important and must be done too, and it's for him to do it, so he does it. Everyone must work. Only the very aged may rest and watch the summer come. Harvest time starts a new round of work, late in summer. In the apple orchards, ladders are propped against heavy branches, and everybody gets busy. The children consider it a lot of fun, at least the first day. Who wouldn't like to pick apples right from the tree? Their parents are used to it. They have done it for many years. But even for them, the first day of the harvest means something special. Now they begin to see a reward for the season's labor. If the weather stays reasonably dry until the whole crop is in, they can hope for a good market. Some small farmers grow certain field crops just for their own needs and to fill small local demand. Harvesting beets in this manner may not seem very efficient, but it is a task an elderly person can still usefully perform. After all, a cartload a day is all that is needed. Speed is not so important. It is different with Farmer Eberhardt, who owns 50 acres, a large farm for Germany. His 30-acre potato crop must be dug up quickly when the market is just right, so a harvester is a good investment. The dried cuttings have been piled up to be burned. Then, with the smoke from many little fires drifting across the field, the Aberharts and their helpers gather the dug-up potatoes into baskets and buckets. There will be a ready market for them. The average German consumes 360 pounds of potatoes a year. One woman has brought her small boy, who learns what to do by watching Reiner for a while. When the baskets are full, they are dumped onto a trailer that will take them to the farmhouse. Even with the crop all gathered, the job is not finished. The field must be raked clean, so it will be ready for recultivation. The fires will burn for some time yet, but nothing must be left for tomorrow. Tomorrow it might rain. The potatoes have been weighed and put into sacks at the farmhouse. The next day they are taken to the farm cooperative office in Nördlingen, where they are checked, and Herr Eberhard receives proper credit, and with it he may purchase supplies, or he can take the cash. Now that fall is here, and the weather quite unstable, the farmer must be on guard. Mature crops must be brought in before they can be damaged by a sudden rainstorm. A good supply of feed for the cattle has been cut. It must be under the roof before the day is over. Left in the field overnight, it might get wet and rot. Rex has been waiting for his master. He knows he will get some attention now. Herr Eberhard always has a few moments for his dog when he comes home. The women drag the cart with the corn into the barn. The day's work is over. Rex has been let out of the kennel and has found some milk, the cat's milk, that is. But the cat doesn't mind. They're on friendly terms. Herr Eberhard has received official plaques attesting to the good health of his cattle. This is important, for now he may freely send them to the market in Nördlingen for sale. The whole region had been under quarantine the 2 previous years, when some cattle were found to be diseased. But now that this is over, trade is brisk because of higher local demand. The hog market is doing well, too. The Germans are prosperous, and they spend more than 1/3 of their earnings on food. Thus, more money gets into the hands of the farmer. It is supper time at the Eberhards. Ruth and Reiner help their mother set the table. Their food is simple but plentiful, and it is all from their own farm. The tomatoes and the smoke-cured ham, the sausage patties, and the pickles, Reiner's favorite. Only the bread was bought because there is no time for baking bread. The place settings are simple: a small wooden serving board and a knife for each person. Every morsel of food is carefully cut and thoroughly savored. If Reiner would only stop eating so many pickles. His grandmother just smiles. She is contented. Her daughter has a nice family. Life is good to them. Yes, for the Eberhards, all is well.
I'll tell you what that film needs. That film needs some more organ. Oops. I'm kind of sitting. Hold on. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. So for the next couple of days, I'm going to be on the road. So we won't have a live show. I don't think. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what my internet is like when I'm on the road. But thanks for tuning in today. If you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up button. Hit the like button. hit the notification button. Hit the button, the positive buttons. Don't hit the negative ones. Don't hit that. And we'll be back live Monday, definitely. But everybody have a great rest of your day. And if you want to buy some coffee, all those coffee beans being washed in Mexico made me think, wow, I need some coffee. So you can go to ko-fi.com/avgeeks and you can buy some coffee. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.